The Galactic Council chambers fell silent as Ambassador Zethkar rose from his crystalline throne, his forearms spreading wide in a gesture of supreme confidence. The assembled delegates from across the galaxy, serpentine Vishani, towering Chromax warriors, and ethereal Lumeni, all turned their attention to the imposing figure whose species had never known defeat in single combat. Honored Council, Zethkar's voice resonated through the chamber's translation matrices. The humans continue to resist our generous offer of subjugation. They claim their species possesses some unique qualities that make them unsuitable for integration into our empire. A ripple of what passed for laughter among the various alien species echoed through the hall. The humans had been discovered only cycles ago, a young species barely capable of interstellar travel, confined to a single unremarkable system on the galaxy's outer rim. Perhaps, continued the Zethkari ambassador, his mandibles clicking in amusement, we should demonstrate the futility of their resistance through the ancient rites of Morta, single combat between champions. Elder Vexani of the Lumeni Collective pulsed with curious light patterns. And whom would they choose as their champion? Their strongest warrior? Zethkar's laugh was a harsh metallic sound. That is the beauty of it, Elder. To show our magnanimity and their weakness, I propose we face not their strongest, but their weakest. Let them send whatever pathetic creature they consider their most feeble representative. When our champion defeats even their weakest with ease, their spirit will break entirely. The motion passed unanimously. 3 standard days later, the human delegation arrived at the neutral station orbiting Kepler 442b. Captain Sarah Chen led the small group, her face carefully neutral as she was escorted to the combat arena, a vast spherical chamber designed to accommodate various atmospheric requirements and gravitational preferences. Zethkar waited in the observation deck, surrounded by hundreds of delegates eager to witness the spectacle. Below his champion stood ready, Gorthax the Unbreakable, a massive Chromax warrior whose exoskeleton had withstood plasma cannons and whose strength could crush starship hulls. "Have you brought your
champion?"
Zethkar asked, unable to keep the mockery from his voice. Captain Chen nodded toward the arena entrance. "He's coming now." The massive doors cycled open and a collective gasp rose from the assembled aliens. The human that emerged was unlike anything they had expected. He was small, even by human standards, perhaps 5.5 feet tall, with a slight build that suggested fragility rather than strength. His hair was gray at the temples, his movements careful and measured. He wore simple clothing and carried no weapons. But what stunned the galactic audience into silence were the mechanical aids he required just to function. A pair of carbon fiber crutches supporting his weight, leg braces visible beneath his clothing, and the unmistakable tremor in his hands that spoke of some degenerative condition. "This is your champion?" Zethkar's voice cracked with disbelief. "You send us a cripple?" "His name is Dr. Marcus Webb," Captain Chen replied calmly. "Age 67. He has multiple sclerosis, a condition that affects his nervous system. He also lost partial function in his legs during a research accident. By any physical measure, he is indeed among the weakest humans alive." The arena fell silent as Dr. Webb made his way slowly to the center, each step requiring visible effort. Gorthax looked down at him. The Chromax stood nearly 10 feet tall, and for the first time in his career the warrior seemed uncertain. I cannot fight this creature," Gorthax rumbled. "It would not be honorable. He can barely stand." "The challenge was issued," Dr. Webb said quietly, his voice carrying through the arena's amplification system. "The terms were your champion against our weakest. I accept those terms." "But you cannot possibly win," Zethkar protested from above. "You can barely walk." Dr. Webb looked up at the observation deck, and something in his eyes made several delegates step backward involuntarily. "Ambassador, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about what constitutes weakness in a human." "I don't understand," Zethkar began. "You see this body," Dr. Webb continued, gesturing to his trembling hands and supported legs, "and you see weakness, disability, frailty, and by your standards, you're absolutely correct. I cannot run. Some days I cannot walk without assistance. My hands shake. My muscles fail me, and my body betrays me daily." The arena was utterly silent now, but you made one critical error in your assessment. You assumed that human strength lies in our bodies. You judged our worth by our physical capabilities, just as you judge your own species by their armor, their claws, their size. Dr. Webb slowly, painfully, lowered himself to sit cross-legged on the arena floor, his crutches set carefully beside him. Let me tell you what I've accomplished with this weak body. I've spent 40 years studying quantum mechanics and theoretical physics. I've unraveled the mathematical principles governing faster-than-light travel. I've designed the propulsion systems that brought us to the stars. He looked directly at Gorthax. And in the 3 days since this challenge was issued, I've been working on a little project. Dr. Webb reached into his jacket and withdrew a small device no larger than a human hand. It pulsed with a soft blue light. This contains a localized quantum field manipulator. It can alter the fundamental constants of physics within a limited space, say, the volume of this arena. I can make gravity stronger or weaker, adjust the electromagnetic force, even modify the strong nuclear force that holds atoms together. The color drained from every face in the observation deck. Of course, Dr. Webb continued conversationally, I could simply increase the gravitational constant in your champion's immediate vicinity. At about 50 times Earth normal, his exoskeleton would collapse under its own weight, or I could weaken the electromagnetic force around his nervous system. A rather unpleasant way to die, I'm told. Gorthax had backed away, his warrior's instincts finally recognizing a predator far more dangerous than anything he'd ever faced. But that would be crude, inelegant. Instead, let me demonstrate what human weakness really means. Dr. Webb activated the device. The arena's atmosphere shimmered, and suddenly every delegate felt a subtle change, a feeling of vast forces held barely in check. I've created a quantum uncertainty field around this entire station. Every atom, every molecule is now in a state of controlled probability flux. With a thought, I can decide whether this station continues to exist in this reality or phases into quantum foam. His voice remained calm, almost gentle. I've been living with this weak body for 23 years since my diagnosis. Every day is a battle just to function, just to think clearly through the fog of medication and pain. Every day I choose to keep going, to keep working, to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Dr. Webb looked around the arena, meeting the terrified gazes of the assembled aliens. You sent your champion against what you thought was our weakness, but you fundamentally misunderstood what makes humans dangerous. It's not our strength. It's our refusal to surrender to weakness. It's our ability to take a failing body and an uncertain future and still reach for the impossible. He stood slowly, retrieving his crutches. We don't just overcome adversity, Ambassador. We weaponize it. The quantum field dissipated, but the message was unmistakable. Now, Dr. Webb said, making his careful way toward the exit, shall we discuss the terms of your withdrawal from human space? I believe Captain Chen has prepared some very reasonable proposals. As the arena doors closed behind him, Gorthax the Unbreakable sank to his knees, and Ambassador Zethkar finally understood that they had never been facing humanity's weakest champion. They had been facing something far more terrifying. A human with nothing left to lose and the intelligence to ensure that his enemies would lose everything. The Galactic Council voted to classify human space as a permanent exclusion zone. The vote was unanimous,